That's right, ladies and gentlemen, not one, but two Buggy videos in the same week! I think the good times are here to stay. This calls for a Tekking dance number! Okay, so this is gonna be a fun video, I can already tell. We're only 22 seconds into this, but I think this is gonna be fantastic. And this was a lot of fun to really theorize and see how this exactly would go down, okay? So, a couple days ago, I did a video on Shanks and Buggy, mostly Buggy, talking about their past, growing up as apprentice pirates or like cabin boys aboard the Oro Jackson, the ship of the Pirate King, Goldie Roger himself, matey. So we talked about that. We talked about how they might have possibly joined Roger's crew. You know, Buggy's originally from the Grand Line, Shanks is from the West, how they would have joined, their fights with Whitebeard, they met Teach and everybody like that. But at the end of the video, I talked about, wait a second, whoa, here's an idea. There was a moment during Logtown, and it was mentioned when Shanks met Whitebeard, and he was going to tell him about, like, hey, I think you should stop Ace from chasing after Blackbeard and everything like that. Whitebeard asked him, he's like, hey, whatever happened to that red-nosed kid you used to hang out with back on Roger's crew? And Shanks was like, huh, Buggy? Yeah, that takes me back. I haven't seen him in like 20-something years, but last time I saw him was at Roger's execution in Logtown. I asked him to join my crew. He said no, and haven't seen him since. I hear he's still a pirate somewhere. He's doing some clown shit. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, that's the last time I saw Buggy, right? So, that made me think, like, what would have happened if at that moment in Logtown, at the execution of Goldie Roger, you know, there were a bunch of people in attendance there. You know, Moria was there, Doflamingo was there, Crocodile was there, Dragon was there, but Buggy and Shanks were also present. They were bawling their eyes out for the death of their captain, executed by the world government. He shouts to the crowd, everybody, you know, is just like, hey, Pirate King, where'd you keep your treasure? And Goldie Roger's like, oh, you go and find it. And he kicks off the Great Pirate Era right there. I can imagine right after the execution was over and after the square starts, you know, emptying out and everything, it's like, well, now the Pirate King's dead. All right, I guess there's a new pirate era. I guess we should start getting ready. Shanks kind of wipes the tears from his eyes and he's like, damn straight, Captain. I'm going to avenge you. I'm going to carry on your will and your legacy. I'm going to start my own pirate crew. Buggy! Join with me, Buggy. We were on Roger's crew together for how many years? Remember when you caught that I can't go to that island or I'll die disease and we couldn't make it to Laughtail? I promised you, Buggy, we would go to Laughtail someday. Join my crew, Buggy. And then we can avenge the captain and we can carry on his legacy. And then Buggy was just like, no freaking flashy damn way am I joining your crew, Shanks. Screw you! And he just walked away. And granted, they might have been a little bit distraught because they just witnessed their captain be, I guess, beheaded. How did Roger die again? Was it like, it wasn't really a guillotine or anything. It was kind of, they just took these, like, spears and just kind of, like, stabbed him through the heart. So, yeah, whatever. They just witnessed their captain die. So they're just like, maybe tensions were running a little bit high. What would have been really funny, what would have been really funny is if, you know, Buggy, like right there in the town square, you know, I was like, screw you, Shanks, I'm not joining your crew. And then Shanks is just like, oh, okay, Buggy, all right, that's fine. Well, I guess good luck to you then, man. You know, we'll always be brothers. And then Shanks left. And it would have been funny if let's say Buggy, he wandered off somewhere in Logtown, he had a drink, he calmed down a little bit, everybody's going crazy, like the Pirate King, great pirate treasure, One Piece. And Buggy, maybe after an hour or two, he's like, man, maybe I should have joined Shanks. That would have been cool. I mean, he's the only guy I really know, honestly. All the rest of the members of the crew all left. You know, Rayleigh, Scopper, Gabon, they all went their separate ways at this point. Shanks was the only family he really had left. And then Buggy's like, you know what? I think I'm going to go find him. And what if Buggy ran out into the square trying to find Shanks? Like, Shanks, wait, I do want to join your crew. But Shanks was already long gone by that point. He already left the island. And Buggy was like, all right. Guess we're doing this on my own then. Takes out a marker, starts like, you know, like making his face, putting the skull and crossbones on his face, like, I guess it's time to start clowning around. You know, he starts his own crew at that point. So today's video, we're going to be talking about what would have happened if Shanks and Buggy Buggy actually did join forces that day. If Buggy accepted Shanks' offer and the Red Hair crew was formed that day with Shanks still being the captain and Buggy as the first mate or the vice captain. Buggy was the Silver's Rayleigh to Shanks. He was Luffy's Zoro. You know, that was what we're going with here. A couple of things to also kind of lay out right out of the gate here. We're going to assume that they join forces and they still are on the same crew to this day. Because I started to think, because of how much Shanks and Buggy argued while on Roger's crew, it could have also have been feasible that they could have joined forces that day, but then they could have argued over something stupid like a day or a week or a year later, and Shanks and Buggy could have separated anyway. Like, Buggy could have been like, he's like, you know what, Shanks, what are we gonna call this crew? And Shanks is like, well, I was thinking the Red Hair Pirates, you know, on account of I have red hair and I'm the captain. He's like, hey, yeah, about that, how come you have to be the captain? He's like, well, I'm the captain. He's like, I want to be the captain. And he's like, well, Buggy, I'm sorry, you can be vice captain. He's like, screw you, Shanks, I'm out of here. So that could have easily happened, because they tend to bicker quite a bit. But we're not going to go with that. We're going to assume, like, no, they stayed on the same crew, and they're still on the same crew to this day. So, and Shanks is still a Yonko, Shanks is still the captain and everything like that. Ben Beckman, Yasop, Lucky Roo, Rockstar, they're all still members of the crew. That monkey is still a member of the crew. They still have the Red Force. All the stuff that happened with the Red Hair Pirates still happened. Like, they still met Whitebeard, you know, Shanks still stopped the war at Marineford. All of that still occurred. But just picture Buggy being there the entire time. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So, let's just start off with this. I think one of Buggy's major shortcomings is that he got a little bit too complacent living in the East. I think Buggy really liked being a pirate because, you know, he was raised essentially, they were both raised by Roger. Roger was essentially their father figure growing up during their childhood and their teenage years, right? So I think he wanted to still be a pirate. That's why he formed his crew in the East. But I don't think Buggy was really, he didn't want to deal with anything dangerous. He didn't want to fight against the Sea Kings or the Marines or other, like, Whitebeard. He didn't want to deal with any of that because that stuff's scary. That stuff's dangerous. He's like, he almost had a panic attack when they went up against Shiki at the Ed War, right? He's like, I don't want to do this, Captain, right? So I think Buggy got complacent and he's like, I just want to have a pirate crew that's all about having fun and throwing parties and we're just going to stay in the East Blue where it's peaceful, therefore it's weaker. And we're gonna get a big circus tent together, and then the name of their ship is the Big Top, and we're just gonna go in to find an island, and we're gonna chase the townspeople out, and we're going to, like, you know, rough them up a little bit. We're gonna take all their food, take all their money, throw a big party in the town square, like, we own this town, fire off some muggy balls just to have some fun, and then whenever we stay a little bit too long in the town, whenever the Marines start getting attention paid on us, we just pack up the Big Top and leave. And Buggy did that for, like, I think, like, over 20 years. He did that. We do not know much about what Buggy did in the intermediate time, in between when he left Shanks at Logtown, all the way up to the Orangetown arc when Luffy and Nami meet him. We just don't know what he was doing. He formed the crew. He met Kabaji and Moji and Richie and everybody like that. I guess he trained them in the arts of the circus, because I don't think Kabaji was like an expert unicyclist when he first met him. I don't think, maybe Moji didn't have Richie. He's like, you're gonna be our beast tamer. I don't know anything about beasts. Screw that. We're gonna find a lion and you're gonna learn. You're gonna learn how to ride a unicycle. Get those acrobatic fuwas over here, you know? We gotta start training if we're gonna be a top pirate-themed, a circus-themed pirate crew, okay? So that's what Buggy was up to. But I think that if he would have joined with Shanks and he would have stuck with Shanks, I honestly think Buggy, he would have gained a lot more confidence. Because here's the thing. Roger was insane. Like, let's not overlook the fact that Roger was kind of out there. Roger was like, let's just dive right into the new world, matey! Yarg! You know, oh look, Shiki has a massive fleet of ships. Should we retreat? No! We charge forward! It's like, okay, Captain, you're kind of insane, but alright. Shanks, though, was not like that. If you actually look at the timeline and how this actually shook down, Shanks did not start right away going into the Grand Line and conquering that or anything, okay? Then keep in mind, Shanks and Buggy, they were still like maybe 14, 15 years old when Roger was executed. So Shanks, 2 years after Roger was executed, he meets Yasop. Apparently, that's the first crewmate he ever recruited. We see this in the Strong World special and also in Chapter 0, the manga adaptation. We see Shanks in just a tiny little dinghy by himself, just a rowboat, approaching the Gecko Islands, approaching Syrup Village, and like, hey, I hear there's this really good sniper named Yasop that lives here. And that's apparently how they met Yasop, how he met Yasop, okay? You know, what was Shanks doing for those 2 years in between Roger's execution and meeting Yasop for the first time? I think what he was doing, well, for one thing, he was laying low because the Marines and the world government were probably out to find all the remnants of Roger's crew and bring them in and execute them as well. So he was probably laying low for that, probably hanging out in taverns and stuff in the East Blue. I think he stayed in the East, didn't go into the Grand Line or anything like that, and he stayed in the East Blue, had a cloak, and he was like hanging out in taverns and stuff, and just listening to the local gossip and the rumors, you know, and he's like, hey, I hear there's this really good sniper. He can apparently shoot a target from like a mile away, and Shanks is like, really good sniper, huh? I could use that on my crew. Okay, here's some berries. Like, oh, I also hear the Marines are coming to town. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm out of here later, guys. So I think Shanks, he spent 2 years building, you know, just gathering rumors, like, where am I gonna go? Oh, Gecko Island, Syrup Village. Okay, there's a really strong, like, sharpshooter there. I'm gonna go search for him. Okay, so he was doing that. And then, here's the kicker. 12 years ago was when Shanks, that's when he met Luffy at Fuchsia Village, and then that's when, after Fuchsia Village was over, after he lost an arm to the Sea King and he gave Luffy the hat, that was the same year Shanks entered the Grand Line. And because he met Rayleigh at Sabaody. So 12 years ago, he stayed at Fuchsia, then went into the Grand Line, started his journey, met Rayleigh, told Rayleigh all about Luffy and everything, and he's like, oh, I haven't seen you in like 10, 12 years, Captain, Vice Captain Rayleigh. So, what was Shanks doing for those 10 years? Meets Yasop 22 years ago, doesn't start his Grand Line journey until 12 years ago. So for 10 years, just building power, that's what he was doing. He was gathering Ben Beckman, Lucky Roo. By the way, Ben Beckman was from the north, Lucky Roo was from the south. I don't know how that worked, because you can't gain access to the North Blue without crossing the Red Line, and that would mean going into the Grand Line first, but it seems to imply, like, when Shanks first met Rayleigh at Sabaody, that was 12 years ago, so he didn't go into the Grand Line before that. That's what, at least it's implying, right? So, he gathers the crew together, builds a plan, gets ready to go, and I think he stayed at Fuchsia for those, he was about a year he stayed at Fuchsia, maybe like 10, 11 months he stayed at Fuchsia, just to kind of have one big party, just to gather, supplies and stuff, and food, and then make the Grand Line journey, finally. He's like, it's been like 12 years since Roger was executed, I think it's time I finally make my mark on the world in a big way, you know, and that's when he finally ended the Grand Line, okay? So, I think if Buggy would have joined from day one, then it would have been a gradual process with him and Shanks going around the East Blue, finding other pirates like Yasop and stuff to join their cause, finding a ship, getting into adventures, but it wouldn't be like intense. It wouldn't be like, you know, when they were traveling with Roger, to use D&D terminology, they were like facing off against like level 18, 19, 20 threats, you know, constantly. They were on Pirate King Goldie Roger's ship, and Shanks is like, hey, you know, let's start small here. We're still like 15 years old, okay? So it would have been like, hey, let's deal with this. All right, oh, hey, there's some Marines over there. Let's see if we can fight against a few of them or whatever. And I think Buggy would have gradually gained more confidence, and, you know, him and Shanks would have still bickered. They're still rivals. That's kind of what they're all about, right? They would have still argued about, like, which is colder, the North or the South Blue or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think they could learn how to trust and rely on each other when they're in pitched combat, okay? And, you know, and Shanks might have even laid out the plan to Buggy. I'm like, okay, Buggy, here's the plan. We're going to lay low for a little while. We're going to learn about the East. We're going to learn about all the, like, the strong people that are in this ocean, and we're going to recruit them, and then we're going to get a ship. We're going to do this right, though. We're not going to enter the Grand Line until we're absolutely certain we can handle it. And I don't think we're ready to do that right now. And Buggy's like, oh, no, absolutely. We're definitely not ready to do that right now. Yeah, I know. So we're going to do this smart, okay? And I think Buggy, I mean, he still has the Bara Bara no Mi at this point, so I think he would have learned how to use the Bara Bara much more effectively, because the way that he's using it now, I mean, he wasn't using it badly, but once again, he was growing complacent. His crew in the current storyline were just, like, chasing off random townsfolk, you know, that were armed with, like, some pitchforks and clubs. You know, they weren't going up against giant marine fleets or anything like that. You know, they weren't actively seeking that stuff out. And Shanks would not have at first, but it's just like, you know, Buggy, you have a really awesome ability. You should train with that really well. And so Shanks and Buggy, you know, Shanks might have helped out Buggy train with his Bara Bara no Mi and learn all these different stuff he can do with it and different techniques and stuff. You know, maybe in this parallel universe, the Buggy would have had less of a aesthetic based around the circus. He would still have the epithet Buggy the Clown or Buggy D Clown. He would still have the face makeup and everything like that. But maybe his outfit would have been a little bit less flashy, you know, maybe because the Shanks' crew are really snazzy dressers. So maybe Buggy, he would have been out of place if, like, here's Ben Beckman, here's Yassop, here's Lucky Roo, and then there's Buggy who steps out in like a dun 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 dun, dun, like a big circus outfit. I'm picturing Buggy in this universe, like in the thumbnail, where I just, like, change his hair to red, so, you know, it's the red hair crew. Buggy is already, like, he has blonde hair, but apparently he dyes it blue or wears a blue wig. Buggy is not against dyeing his hair, so it might have taken him some convincing, but he's like, alright, we're the red hair crew, I'll dye my hair red for you, Shanks, okay? And so he dyes his hair red. And then he just wears, like, an open collar kind of shirt, maybe similar to, like, Ben Beckman. He has a cloak, and Buggy's just this really kind of a cooler character than he is in the actual story. He's very just, like, kind of sleek and chill, and just like, yeah, we'll take them out in a flashy manner, you know, but not, like, dressing super ostentatiously or anything like that, right? Maybe more just to fit in Shanks' crew, right? Hey, who knows? Remember that one scene at the beginning of the story when Lucky Roo just takes out a pistol and just caps off one of the mountain bandits? That could have been Buggy in this dimension, right? You know, Buggy could have just walked up, just click, bang, and then it's like, whoa, you guys are real pirates. And Shanks is like, damn straight, we're real pirates. You know, like, that's how we do things. Way to go, Buggy. That's right, Captain. You know, okay. So I think he would have had a lot more confidence. He would have learned how to use his devil fruit a lot more. He wouldn't have been as scared or cowardly as he is in the current story. He would learn how to fight a little bit more. Also, I think it would be an important thing if Buggy would have, like, forgiven Shanks for the whole ordeal with the Bara Bara no Mi. That would have actually been a really cool thing to do, where maybe Shanks helps Buggy train with his fruit, and then Buggy realizes all the cool things he can do with the Bara Bara no Mi. Like, he might be able to, like, separate his body, like, super, like, refined. Like, that's always been a theory. Like, couldn't Buggy, like, separate his body, like, molecules? Like, couldn't he, like, he's like, Buggy, you have the ability to pass through, like, a portcullis or a door. You could just, like, separate your body, like, you could break it down to little tiny pieces. You could just walk through, like, a barrier or a gate or something. So, maybe Shanks teaches him more about that. They learn that together, and then Buggy forgives Shanks, because that's the whole reason that Buggy hates Shanks in the current story. Actually, I think it's more than that. I really do. I think it's a mixture of jealousy there, too. Shanks is this really successful Yonko, and then Buggy is still this 15 million, you know, berry pirate living in the East. And, you know, he has nobody to blame but himself for that. Like, you know, he could have easily went to the Grand Line earlier. He could have tried to be more ambitious, but he decided not to. I think, like, Buggy tells himself, like, oh, it's all because of Shanks. He ruined my life because he made me eat that fruit. Shanks did not make you eat the fruit, Buggy, okay? And on top of that, maybe Buggy's like, and he's this super sexy, successful pirate. He's an emperor. He's out there. He's clashing with the Marines. They think he's some big threat. I'm Shanks. I have 4 billion something whatever berries. You know, like, that's how probably Buggy, like, thinks of Shanks in the current storyline, right? He's like, oh, he thinks he's so cool. I think it's a little bit of jealousy there. I think Buggy might have been like, man, that could have been me. I could have been on his crew. He gave me the offer. You have to at least think that Buggy, even as an intense hatred for Shanks, he still thinks about it every now and then. He's lying asleep in the big top, and he's about to go to bed, and he's like, I wonder what would have happened if I would have joined his crew. Maybe I could have a bounty of, like, 2 billion by now. Maybe I could be freaking Ben Beckman. Yeah, whatever. Maybe. It's possible, right? In this version of reality, he would be, you know, he would be like, I think he would be way more buffer. He has a better diet, you know, although to be fair, the Shanks' crew, the red hair crew, they party quite a bit. So that would also go along with Buggy's, like, aesthetic, right? Okay. But he would be a lot more, you know, trained in combat. He can maybe use, like, he takes out his pistols and it separates his body. So he, like, takes a pistol and, like, uses the Bara Bara to, like, send the pistol around the back of the enemy and just unload. That'd be awesome. Like, picture this scene, all right? The red hair crew is they're rocking up against another rival pirate crew, or the Marines or something, and Buggy's walking up, and he has his hands in his pockets kind of like this. He's just walking up, okay? And in reality, his hands have been detached, and they're holding, like, one has a sword and one has a flintlock, And maybe if he trained with the Bara Bara no Mi more, he could increase the range that he could send out his body parts, right? And we're talking like 14 something years of training in the East with Shanks and, you know, recruiting everybody, okay? So Buggy walks up to the battle and they start talking to the other crew or the Marines. It's just like, you guys have already lost. And they're like, what? And then Buggy takes out his arms, but they're no hands. And then he's like, you might want to pay attention to what's behind you. And he turns around, like both hands just unload, like, you know, just like, whoa, from behind. Like, he sends out the hands in advance, and it, like, loops around if he increases his range that he could use, and then just unloads from the back or something. Like, that would be awesome. Like, he could learn how to do stuff like that, right? That'd be so cool. Okay. So, now I wanted to take a little bit of time to just talk about how this would change the story with the Straw Hats, because it would change it quite a bit. All right, I'm gonna try to go I'm not gonna go into elaborate every little moment because we'll be here all day, but I'm just gonna go through like the little moments. Okay, so if this is how this went, first thing, keep in mind, Shanks and Buggy would have been in Fuchsia Village with, you know, when Luffy was a little kid, and Buggy would have been one of the pirates that Luffy would have probably looked up to. Because they arrived in Fuchsia Village, you know, they'd already had their pirate crew for a number of years, like 12 years at this point. And so, you know, like Luffy obviously looked up to Shanks mainly as his, like, benefactor. Is like, oh, he's the one that set me on my path and everything like that, and he saved me. But Luffy also respects Yasopp. He's like, oh yeah, Yasopp was there too. He was really cool. Ben Beckman, Lucky Roo, man, those pirates were so cool. Buggy would have been there too. And Luffy probably would have been like, oh yeah, there's also this Buggy guy with a red nose. You know, he was also part of the crew. That was awesome, right? So Luffy might have acted like right now in the story, like Luffy doesn't like, you know, I guess he helped him out at Impeldown and stuff, so Luffy's kind of on okay terms with Buggy, but he would have actually been one of the pirates that he would have looked up to at a young age, because Luffy would have been 7 and Buggy and Shanks would have been 27 at this point, so that's something that would have been different. You know, Luffy's like, I want to be just like Shanks and Buggy when I grow up. That would have been funny. Actually, holy crap, do you understand that if, I know I said I wouldn't go off on a tangent, but here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Buggy's ability of the Bara Bara no Mi, if he was present in Fuchsia Village with Shanks for that whole year, Luffy ate the Gamu Gamu no Mi, Buggy might have actually been able to teach Luffy some moves. It's like, hey, Luffy, your devil fruit that you got now is kind of similar to mine, so he can use, like, Bara Bara pistol and, like, launch it, and he's a lot stronger at this point, so when Buggy sends off one of his arms, one of his hands, they can, like, destroy an entire boulder or, like, a tree, just crack it in half, like, BAM! See? Luffy, you have the same thing I do. You can extend it out. I mean, I could separate my body, you could stretch it. So it might have been a weird scenario where Buggy might have actually taught Luffy some of the fundamentals of using a devil fruit like that. I know, right? It could have happened. So anyway, everything with Higuma and the Sea King and Shanks losing an arm, that still happens. And so Shanks is still the one that really inspires Luffy, takes off the hat, gives it to Luffy. Okay. Then Shanks and the rest of the crew, they leave Fuchsia and they head into the Grand Line. Okay, this was 12 years ago. Okay, and then that's when Buggy really starts getting up there. Maybe he learns hockey at that point, the same thing that Shanks learns at the same time. They learn more about their devil fruits. Buggy might even be awakened by this point in the story if we keep going with this, okay? So, but because Buggy went with Shanks into the Grand Line, that means that, of course, he never takes over Orange Town in the present storyline. In the present storyline, by the time Luffy has already started his adventure and meets Zoro and Kobe and everybody like that, Shanks is already a Yonko. He's already in the new world. He's already established himself, and Shanks is Buggy is his right-hand man, basically, and they're still there. Buggy, by this point in the story, would probably have a bounty of at least 1 billion berries. Because Shanks already is a Yonko, his bounty is probably like, well, 2 years ago his bounty might have been lower, but let's say it was around 4 billion where it's at right now. And Ben Beckman and Lucky Roo and Yasopp and Buggy, their bounties would probably already be around 1 billion, if not higher. You know, I think it was also stated by Brand New that Shanks's crew has like one of the highest average bounties. So Big Mom and Kaido's bounties are actually higher than Shanks's is right now. Shanks's is right now. but on average, his whole crew is a lot smaller, and their bounties are a lot larger. So, like, Ben Beckman, Lucky Roo, and Yasop's bounties right now are probably way higher than, like, the Sweet Commanders aboard Big Mom's crew. They might even be higher than King, Queen, and Jack on Kaido's crew. You know, who knows? Ben Beckman might have, like, a 2 billion berry bounty, or 2.5 billion. For all we know, it could be that. So if Buggy was, like, one of the, you know, right-hand men in that situation, his bounty might be at least 1 billion at this point when Luffy arrives at Orangetown, right? So... actually, the way Luffy arrives at Orangetown was completely by accident, because him and Zoro were on the ship, and then Luffy tries to Gumu Gumu no Rocket the bird or whatever, or get his hat back, and he gets caught by the bird, and the bird crashes on Orangetown. And then, in the actual context of the story, that's where Luffy runs into, like, you know, Buggy's crew, like, hey, kid, what are you doing here? This is Buggy's turf, right? And he meets Nami there. In this scenario, Buggy wouldn't be in Orangetown. Nami probably wouldn't be in Orangetown. There's no reason for her to go there, because Buggy's not there. She doesn't need to steal the map from Buggy or anything, you know, because Buggy's way in the New World at this point. So I guess Luffy would have just crashed down on Orangetown and like, whoa! And then Boodle walks over. Boodle is the mayor. He walks over. He's like, oh my God, son, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm a rubber kid. And he's like, okay, well, welcome to Orangetown. It's a lovely town. I founded it here 40 years ago. It's a good little community. There's the local pet shop over there. The pet shop is called Pet Stop. Go check it out there. You want some orange juice? We got some juice for you. Then Zoro's like paddling on the shore. Like, Luffy, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm okay, Zoro. You're Pirate Hunter Zoro. So it might have actually ended up where the townsfolk might have been afraid of them and just been like, okay, because Luffy wouldn't like raid the place. He's not that kind of pirate. But it might have been a situation where if they recognize like Pirate Hunter Zoro and he's like kind of dangerous, he's like a demon, and Luffy's like, oh, we're a pirate crew. Boodle might have been a little bit hesitant to like let them stay, but he's like, okay, well, as long as you don't cause any trouble, you know, we're here, it's fine. And then they would have just left Orangetown. It would have been a very lame adventure, I'll tell you that much. It would have just been like, hey, I hear there's a lost cat in town. Can you go find it? Luffy finds a lost cat. That's the Orangetown arc, and then they just leave. So I hope they run into Nami at some other point. You know, Nami would still be wandering around the east trying to gather money for Kokoyashi Village. They would probably have still met her. It's just that it wouldn't have been there. It would have been maybe at some other island. Maybe she would have, maybe they wouldn't have run into her until they ended up at Kokoyashi. I think Luffy and Zoro and Sanji and Usopp, they still would have probably ended up at Kokoyashi Village and Arlong Park anyway, because Arlong is the strongest pirate in the east, and Luffy would have been like, oh, I'm going to beat up the strongest pirate in the east and then head to the Grand Line. That makes sense. So they still probably would have ran into Nami at some point. It would have just been all discombobulated at like a different moment, right? Okay. So, that's the situation with the East. It would not really affect anything in a huge way. Luffy would not have his straw hat was actually pierced by Buggy, remember? And sometimes, you know, sometimes Oda includes it, sometimes not. You could still see the scars on Luffy's straw hat from when Nami stitched it back up. So that wouldn't have happened. The straw hat still would have been, like, in one piece after that. But anyway, yeah, so they would have went to the Grand Line like normal. I'm trying to think of other moments. Like, Buggy eventually goes to... well, no, the whole thing at Logtown wouldn't have happened. Oh yeah, that whole part of that wouldn't happen. Alvida would have not have joined Buggy's crew, because Alvida would have still been in the East. She would have still have gotten defeated by Luffy. She still would have eaten the slip fruit. She would have gotten super sexy, but she would have just had her own crew. She wouldn't have joined up with Buggy or anything like that, because Buggy's in the New World at this point. He's a top-ranked Yonko commander at this point in the story, right? So Alvida wouldn't have joined. There would have been nothing at Logtown. I guess Luffy would have just showed up at Logtown, saw the execution platform, had a run-in with Smoker. I mean, Dragon could have still gotten involved, but the whole thing with Dragon using the lightning bolt to save Luffy, that wouldn't have happened. Maybe Dragon would have still have been there, and he would have seen Luffy, and he still would have stopped Smoker from attacking him, but the whole dramatic thing with the lightning bolt... Oh! 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 Do you know what I'm thinking about? Do you know what what just popped into my head? I want you to guess. Guess in the comments below. Okay. You want to guess? Okay. Bartolomeo wouldn't have viewed Luffy as a god. Bartolomeo. The reason Bartolomeo became a huge Luffy fanboy is because he was at Logtown. He was a gang leader in Logtown. He was present when Luffy was about to be executed, and a giant lightning bolt came down from on high and saved Luffy at that exact moment when the freaking blade was 1 centimeter away from Luffy's head. Boom! Lightning bolt. And Bartolomeo was like, oh, that is truly the god of this world! If Buggy would have not have been present, then Luffy would not have been on the scaffolding. He would not have about to have been executed. The lightning bolt would not have saved him, and Bartolomeo would have not have even... Bartolomeo might not even know of Luffy's existence. He might have like, hey, have you heard there's a rubber kid running around the freaking docks? Wow, yeah, Smoker's chasing after him. I'm like, okay, whatever. Bartolomeo would have been like, okay, who cares? You know, whatever. As long as the kid doesn't come, you know, causing trouble in my turf, I'm fine. You know, like, so yeah. That could have happened. That could have totally happened. Maybe, okay. It could have still maybe happened, because maybe if Smoker had Luffy, like, down on the ground and he was about to smack him with his staff, and then Dragon did the epic lightning bolt, maybe there's still a possibility Bartolomeo could have viewed him. But that moment when he was on the scaffold and with the lightning bolt and Buggy, that was perfect. That was ideal. That was like Bartolomeo's, like, seeing Jesus come back. You know what I mean? So... Buggy probably, if Buggy wasn't there, Bartolomeo would not have been this devout pirate. He wouldn't have become a pirate. He probably would have just stayed in Logtown as this small town, like, gang leader. And that's all that was. So Bartolomeo would not have been President Dressrosa. He wouldn't have helped out Luffy. He wouldn't be a member of the Grand Fleet. So... Buggy is a cornerstone for a lot more than you think in this story. Okay. So what happens after that? Okay, so they escape Logtown. They get into the Grand Line. Luffy does. Okay. There was a moment where Buggy runs into Ace very briefly, but that's not something that's really integral. Buggy would have still met Ace because Ace sought out Shanks to go talk to him about Luffy. You know, and Shanks and Buggy would have been together at that point. So, you know, Ace would have went into that mountain cave and ran into them and talked about them. So that still would have happened. Buggy still would have met Ace. I'm trying to think if there's anything else major. Buggy, of course, up until Impeldown, because that's the next point in the story where Buggy becomes really integral. You know, Buggy would not have been captured by the Marines. He would not have been thrown in Impeldown. So therefore, by the time Luffy gains access to Impeldown and tries to save Ace, at that point in the story, he would have really run into nobody in level 1. So Luffy would have just had to get really lucky in level 1. He'd have to just beat through a bunch of people and, you know, try not to get shredded by the forest. I don't know how Luffy would have made it through the Crimson Hell without Buggy. He would have probably figured out something, find the hole and jump down, and then he could run into Mr. 2 in level 2. Maybe not Mr. 2, Mr. 3 in level 2, and then Mr. 2 in level 3. So maybe Galdino, Mr. 2, Mr. 3, damn it. Galdino, Mr. 3, he would have been the one that takes Buggy's place. And like, well, okay, Straw Hat, I guess I could show you down further. Like, that would have been, like, the comic relief, mainly, throughout Impeldown, because Buggy wouldn't have been present there. Right. So then Impeldown would have went through pretty much entirely okay. I don't think there was anything Buggy did outside of using his powers to get through the Crimson Hell. I'm trying to think of anything else that Buggy did that was, like, super integral. Well, it was Buggy's unyielding charisma that rallied all of those prisoners together for a riot, and I don't think Mr. 3 has that kind of charisma, so... The prison break of Impeldown might not have went as smoothly without Buggy being present to kind of rally everybody together. So, yeah. I mean, yeah, you still got Luffy and Ivankov and Crocodile and Mr. 1 and all the other Baroque agents and everything like that. You still got Inazuma and every Jinbei. But, Buggy missing from Impeldown, that would be a big loss. I'm not sure they'd be able to recover from that. The prison break still probably would have happened, but it would be way less prisoners that would have escaped, maybe. Maybe instead of like 200 something prisoners, it was only like, you know, like 50 prisoners escaped or something from Impeldown, which still would have been impressive. But yeah, Buggy, he would not have been present at the beginning stages of Marineford. Buggy would have arrived at Marineford along with the rest of the Red Hair crew. All right, so that's how that would have went down. So there's no scene with like Whitebeard and Buggy talking back and forth, because I think Whitebeard was already dead at this point when the Red Hair Pirates showed up. There would have been no scene where Mihawk tries to cut Luffy and Luffy's like, Gummo Gummo no jet scapegoat, and like grabs Buggy and like gets like that wouldn't have happened. So Luffy, Gummo Gummo no scapegoat, grabs like a random prisoner from Impeldown. It's like, hey, wait, what are you doing? Ah! Just gets actually sliced by Mihawk. Sorry, dude. But yeah, but that scene though, the scene where, you know, Shank shows up, he blocks freaking Aka Inu's punch from killing Kobe. Ben Beckman takes out his rifle and just points it right at, stop right there, Kizaru. Click. And freaking Kizaru's like, oh, Ben Beckman's here. Okay. maybe you could have had Buggy stop Aokiji or Sengoku or Garp or somebody. Just like the scene with Ben Beckman and Kizaru, Aokiji starts to like make like ice top, and then Buggy just shows up. His hands are all separated. He has like his guns and stuff all pointed and all like that. He has his feet, and his like feet have the little blades head, and they're all hockeyed up, pointed right at Aokiji's throat, and is like, hang on right there a second, Aokiji. Don't be making any rash moves. And Aokiji's like, oh, well, looky what we have here. Buggy D. Clown, bounty of 1.7 billion. And Buggy's like, don't you forget it. You know? It could have been a scene like that. It could have been really cool, you know? And then that scene where Shanks takes out Griffin, and he's like, if you still want to fight, we'll be here to fight you. And the epic scene, the da-da-da, da-da-da, and then you see all the cool close-up shots of Shanks' crew, and then Buggy would be there too. Bam! Buggy's there, right? Maybe Buggy has like a Meito at this point. He has like one of his daggers, or maybe he has like a short sword that's like a Meito rank, like an Owazamono or some shit. Maybe, it's possible. It's totally possible. Yeah. And so after that, one of the things about the Red Hair crew is we really don't see that much of them in the story, other like key important moments. Ever since the time skip, we've seen Shanks quite a few times, but in terms of like his crew doing anything major, there was that cover story where they were at a wedding. Whose wedding? Don't know. But that was like the one time, because we haven't really seen like anything big from like Ben Beckman, Yasop, Lucky Roo, or anybody in Shanks' crew since the time skip. The biggest thing is when Shanks actually went to Reverie to meet with the Gorosei, but his crew weren't with him at that point. So, yeah, I think everything from that point onward from Marineford, that would have been like that. Just like the Marineford was the last really big moment we had with Ben Beckman and stuff, that would have been the last really big moment we would have had with Buggy. Buggy, of course, wouldn't be a warlord in this version. Hyrudine would have not been part of his Buggy's delivery. But I think Hyrudine would have still went to Dressrosa, still participated for the Maramara. So Hyrudine would have still been a member of the Grand Fleet. He would have just had the new Giant Warrior Pirates earlier than joining Buggy's crew, right? So, yeah, like most of that stuff would have stayed the same, and Buggy's crew would just be revered far and wide. It's like when Brand New was talking about it, it's like here are all the Yonko in the world, you know? This is Shanks right here. He became a Yonko 6 years ago. He's got Beckman. He's got Buggy. He's got Yasop and Lucky Roo. Some of the most terrifying pirates that ever sailed the seven seas. Also, you know what? Buggy's bounty and Shanks's bounty actually might be like more comparable than even Ben Beckman, because it would also be like the world government would have realized way quicker that Buggy and Shanks were both members of Roger's crew. So it's totally possible that like Shanks would still have the highest of like 4 billion, right? But it's like, okay, Ben Beckman, Lucky Roo, Yasop, they all have like between 1 and 2 billion or something like that. Maybe Ben Beckman has like 2.2 billion or something. But it's like, okay, Buggy is the vice captain in this timeline, and he was also a member of Roger's crew. So Buggy might have like a 3 billion berry bounty, and then freaking Shanks is 4, and then everybody else, like Ben Beckman is terrifying, but Ben Beckman wasn't a member of the Pirate King's crew. You know what I mean? So it might be this weird version. And once again, Buggy is not all bluster and bravado in this timeline. Buggy is actually trained in hockey. He might actually have awakened his bar, and he can like atomize his body. So he can literally like the Flash. You know how the Flash, I don't read Marvel comics I don't read DC comics that well. You can tell I don't read comics that well when I make that mistake. But no, yeah. So I'm pretty sure the Flash, though, he can like vibrate his molecules so much he can like pass through solid matter. Buggy might be able to do that. Buggy might be able to just like approach a wall or a door and be like, door's locked. Okay. And then just like atomize, split apart his cells to the point where it can just slip through the door to the other side. That could be something there. His awakening could be also like splitting up around him, like so he can like chop world, and he can like break apart buildings and stuff, and like have this weird crazy setup and stuff, and then turn the environment into their own like advantage. Like he could literally like walk into a town and then restructure the entire town, like, and give freaking Yasop, like, Yasop can jump on top of a roof, and he's like, okay, Buggy, do it. Buggy's like, chop world, and, like, starts up, and, like, so Yasop has, like, a super high vantage point, and Yasop can just, like, you know, boom, like, and then Buggy's like, ha ha ha, da 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 da. You know, like they could be doing stuff like that. You know, that like combo attacks. It'd be so damn cool, right? So yeah, I mean, Buggy is already a god, but he could be godlier. That's all I'm saying. So yeah, that's what I want to talk about today. With if Buggy would have joined Shanks' crew to begin with, this actually sounds like I've done a lot of what if scenarios on here. Like, what if the time skip didn't happen? What if Whitebeard never died? You know, what if Aokiji became the fleet admiral instead of Aka Inu becoming the fleet admiral? I've come up with a lot of really creative. What if Luffy was a marine? That was a really good one. But you know, this is the one that I would actually love to see like a fan comic of. You know, like a fan comic of Shanks and Buggy just like taking famous moments from One Piece, but just including like Buggy on Shanks' crew. That would be something beautiful. All right. Well, anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. This is a longer video than I thought it was originally going to be. It's already like a 40-minute long video before I edit it. But thanks for watching, everybody. Barry and Tekking signing out. Long live God Buggy.